is Jack Bybee, and I bid you peace. The Jack Church Show, good day. My name is Jack Bybee, and I welcome you to the second edition, the second showing of the Jack Chat Show. You can go to jack.com to see this, to see the video live or recorded in archive. The the premise of the show is to help reduce the end of life anxiety. I've done a little bit of research, but before I go there and get into the show entirely, I'd like to a personal note. My business plan called called for in the past tense called for expanding the possibility of the Jack Chat Show through Arizona here in the desert Southwest, where the skies are blue and the mountains are bluer, where the cactus and the saguaro are prickly and the rattlesnakes rattle. Other than that, as I was saying, that I'd only planned to expand here in Arizona. As you probably know, the first show, the premiere of the Jack Chat Show, went live last Tuesday. Over the weekend, I hooked up my analytics program to the website, and to my amazement and astonishment and delight, I realized that instead of talking to an American audience, I'm actually addressing an international audience. There was, as of this morning, a viewer from Canberra, Australia. There have been viewers from Freiburg in Switzerland. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. From the UK, I still don't know what city you're in. And even the biggest delight I've had is to know that there are two viewers along the banks of the Volga in Russia. To you in Russia, I send you Ura, peace, with an uppercase P, right? I hope I pronounced that. And oh, by the way, if you think I'm going to learn more Russian, the answer is no. It's not going to happen. I hope I pronounced Ura correctly. Okay. I've come to the realization, and I've read a number of instances, that it's very difficult to define something you cannot measure. There is no way that I can define death. And what is even more interesting, as far as I'm concerned, I have researched a little bit, mainly in the Christian Bible, and there are only two instances, one in Daniel and one in Isaiah, where I can find any mention of what happens on the other side. Later in the show, I hope to have an interview with a friend of mine who will be a philosopher and an artist here in Tucson, who will be telling us about Plato and about his views on the soul, the psyche, the spirit, and what he thought back in antiquity could happen when the soul, if the soul left the body, and if it did, where it went. I'm just a little bit nervous about that. It's the first recorded interview I've got, so I'm not certain if it's going to work, but I'll try. Very well. So what is death? What can we expect? As I said in the first show, the spirit leaves the body. That's what happened to me. And a story I could tell you now. I was in hospital in Cape Town, South Africa. I was very, very ill. A little nurse, an Afrikaner nurse, a cute little brunette, and I got rather friendly the times I was conscious, and she'd come to ruffle up my pillows, and I suppose we started flirting a little bit on one thing and another. To my amazement, I had I I flatlined. That wasn't the amazing part, but up the tunnel, and as I mentioned last week, on the way up the tunnel, it's quite an astounding experience. I had never traveled so fast, and I do hope by next week to have a JPEG or an image that I can provide to you and show you a sketch that I've done of what the tunnel looks like, so that you can be prepared and you can see where probably there's no certainty about anything, but more than likely that's what you are going to encounter when your spirit leaves the body. This nurse, I call her Anita. uh, uh, in my experience, I looked back and I saw Anita and her parents at the nurse's home, and I saw a car salesman drive up with a red MGB. Now, in those days in South Africa, it was an absolute no-no. It just didn't happen that parents would give a car to their children. But for Anita, she was the only child. She had left the farm, come to the hospital, become a nurse, and she was graduating. On top of that, it was her 21st birthday, which is a big deal in the English-speaking world like South Africa. I look back and I see Anita marvelously excited, ecstatic. She jumps into the sports car, up along the side of the nurse's home, onto a highway that is carved into the side of Table Mountain, and she goes screaming down the highway into a hairpin bend, loses control, and wraps herself around a cement telephone pole. And that was the end of the earthplane existence of Nurse Anita. Believe it or not, on the other side, I'm still trying to figure out where I am and what I am and why I am. And all of a sudden, there's the spirit of Nurse Anita. And I said, "But Anita, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, I've come to fluff up your pillows." Nice try. This is not a hospital ward. I didn't know where I was, but I knew it wasn't a hospital ward. So we looked around, and Anita said to me, "I see the boundary. Every occurrence on the other side has a boundary. In my case, it was an old, rustic, old wooden fence. I love wood." And Anita said to me, "I must go on now, and I will cross the boundary, but you must not follow me, because then your life will truly be over. Now you can still go back." Eventually, yes, I returned. And in hospital ward again, when I was recuperating, I didn't realize this, but there was a nurse at my bed, my neurologist, and some medical students. And I was telling my neurologist exactly what I have just related. And this nurse at the foot of the bed had stood frozen. And suddenly, the poor girl just let out a scream. "But I know Anita. We were the best of friends. I know she's dead. How can you know these things?" And she turned around and fled from the hospital wall. Go figure. That's life. That's what happened to me. Now, the only differentiation, as I've said before, between a near-death experiencer like myself and yourselves is that we, the near-death experiencers, have memories of the other side, what I like to call memories of eternity. That's a great title for my new book that's coming out, hopefully by the fall. But that's another matter. Here in America, we I believe the average age of the expected life of the average American is now starting to push 80, 90. A good number of us are going to live into our hundreds and are living into our hundreds. But sooner or later, the time will come that we do have to shuffle off, as Shakespeare put it. And it's not a very nice thing to think of. But again, the bard stated, from hour to hour we ripe and ripe. And then from hour to hour, well, we go downhill. We rot and rot. I don't like rotting. I'm still, well, I like to fool myself and I'm still ripening, but I know to the difference. Anyway, uh, what is a definition of death? How can I define something that I cannot measure? The point is, and this is a complete contradiction in terms, as Val will hopefully point out. We don't die. Oh, but you're dead. No, I'm not. And many people who do die and are able to report it, the near death experiencer, have stated that when they died, they didn't realize they had died. Why? Because they weren't dead, they were still alive. Or rather, they were conscious. And being conscious, they could think, they could feel, they could see, they could move. But the body, the physical body, had lost all vital signs. The EEG was flat. Basically, that led to the expression of the flat line. Anyway, that's that. Raymond Moody, the medical doctor who, as a medical student, defined the near death experience, has stated that um, death is an annihilation of consciousness. Well, as much as I respect Dr. Moody's uh, research, no, it's not. Death is an annihilation of earth plane conscious, but you're still conscious. Of that, I can assure. Joop van Lommel has, I believe, coined the term death consciousness. And I'm trying to contact Dr. van Lommel in the Netherlands to see if he can come on the show. I've got to try to get the video up of my friend Val Mustaine. If you could just give me a moment, I've got to access YouTube. Hold on, please. This is not working. And here we are. Hello. Good day. Good day. Oh, fuck, this is YouTube. Good day. I'm so pleased I'm back. I had a bit of a struggle. I hope you were able to hear and view Valmustein's video, the interview I had with her about Plato. Um, I do apologize. It's the first time I've ever done this, period. uh, things things are going to improve. For the next show, our time is almost up, but for the next show, I will be focusing. There won't be an interview, but I will be focusing on the life review. The issue that I think keeps the you've heard of the changes in the near-death experience. Well, you won't believe the changes in me. Well, that's because I feel of the life review. And I honestly think that the life review is the most important aspect of any life. It's what we need to learn in the next life, because our lives here, we've missed opportunity, and there are lessons we need to learn. Before I go, you will hear me talk about the perfection of the other side. You will hear me talk about how wonderful it is. But on that score, none of us, you, me, are all here to learn a lesson. Any unexpected death, any hurt that we create, upsets the balance of the universe. And I mean hurt for others or hurt for ourselves. And in hurt for ourselves, I'm talking about suicide. Please don't. It's not an option. The lessons you are supposed to learn, you're supposed to learn, whether you like them or not. There are lessons you have to learn. Suicide is the coward's way out. I know you're not a coward. Don't do it. If you absolutely feel you are going to commit suicide, you're going to kill yourself, please pick up the phone, go find someone you can trust, talk to them, please. And remember, you might be hurting yourself, but how many others are you hurting as well? I don't believe that at the very least there isn't one person who loves you and loves you deeply. Suicide is not an option. Those who love you, who remain behind, will never get over that, because they know only too well that you just have to come back and start all over again to learn those lessons. Next week, we talk about the life review. I'll tell you another story, and we can go from there. Please send me your comments, send me your queries, your questions. I'll try. That's all I can do. So, from here, the desert of Arizona, where the sun shines and the mountains are blue, may you walk in peace, journey in delight. May the blessings of the Perfect One be with you and yours always. Jack out.